Chapter 225. Don't talk nonsense if you can make a move. Goatee's nickname was similar to Song Hei. His name was Iron Leg Lee. His leg technique was like a knife, and his destructive power was astonishing. Now that he was wearing iron shoes, there was wind under his feet. His entire body was like an arrow that shot out. The instantaneous explosive force raised a wave of air-piercing sounds that were extremely shocking. With a muffled sound, Song Hei's clothes were kicked apart and he staggered back. Crack, crack, crack. The floor was crushed by the retreating foot. Song Hai looked at his bare arm and his face turned red. He looked indignant. His clothes were shattered, which meant that his protective Khanate genuine chi had been broken by the other party's kick. His hands were originally his strongest point. His most powerful palm technique had been broken. The results of the fight was fixed. He was inferior to the other party. "Give me another year and I'll definitely surpass this old man," he shouted in his heart. The goateed man exhaled a white breath and stared coldly at Song Shi. "Little Song, do you still want to fight? I'm no match for you, but in another year, that might not be the case." Song Hai coldly glanced at the middle-aged man in the embroidered robe at the door. The latter had a square face and big ears. His cheekbones were obvious. He immediately replied mockingly, "The world is very chaotic now. Whether you can live to a year is a problem. I think you should scram back to your Iron Pawn gang. Don't have keep seeking death here." A threat. This was a blatant threat. The meaning behind his words was obvious. If Song Hai continued to pester him, his life would be in danger. "Song Hai, the family head is right. You're alone and weak. You should know your place. Don't lose your life for nothing." Goatee stroked his beard in an old-fashioned manner. Song Hai was not frightened. He shook his numb hands and stared at the middle-aged man in the brocade robe. "Son Bai, return my Song family's assets and I'll leave. My Son family has already devoured it and you still want us to spit it out." Son Bai's sinister smile floated out of his mouth. He raised his head and snorted. "Elder Lee, since he doesn't know what's good for him, break his hands and throw him away." "Song Hai, why do you have to give in to your moment of anger?" Iron Leg Lee slowly walked out. "You advanced to the Khanate realm at such a young age and have a bright future. Why do you still care about these secular things?" "HMPH, a year ago, my Song family encountered a tragic disaster. I was in seclusion to break through, so it's understandable that I didn't know the situation and didn't come back. Now that I'm capable, how can I still hide in the dark? Can't let you snatch my Song family's assets at will. Then I can only ruthlessly cripple a genius like you." A cold light flashed in Li Tijia's eyes. He strode forward and slashed down with his palm. Then, his left foot cut Song Hei's thigh like a knife and began to specialize in attacking. The lethality was even more terrifying. Song Hei's iron palm, which he was good at, was suddenly overstretched. Soon, his thigh was grazed, and blood immediately flowed out. He became limping. Cold sweat broke out on his forehead. The older the ginger, the spicier it was. It was as if he was facing a storm and could be torn apart at any moment. An arm can't win against a thigh. Didn't your master tell you that palm techniques can't win against leg techniques?" Li Tiexu sneered and used words to break down Song Hei's confidence. These words were indeed effective. He, who lacked enough experience, was tricked by the sly old fox, and his defense showed flaws again. Swoosh, bang, Song Hai spat out blood and flew out. He was kicked 100 feet away, shattering his bones and tendons of a few people watching the show. The crowd retreated like a swarm of bees. "It's not like you have a system like me. Why are you trying to be strong?" When Song Shi, who had just arrived, saw his fourth brother's miserable state, he muttered in his heart and shook his head helplessly. He formed a seal with one hand, and his physique and appearance changed again. In an instant, he became 20 to 30 years older than usual. The people nearby were dodging in a panic. Coupled with the interference of his nomological power, they were not qualified to notice at all. Even the Khanate experts of the Sun family were not qualified. The latter took advantage of the situation and jumped up from the ground, stomping down on Song Hai. Song Hai dodged in a panic. His feet, which were wearing special shoes, stepped on the floor and burst like bubbles. This kick was just the beginning. Song Hai was chased until he rolled on the ground in an especially sorry state. "Ha ha ha, are you Song family dogs? Do you like to roll on the ground so much?" Sun Bai laughed loudly. Piak. With a crisp sound, Sun Bai's laughter came to an abrupt end. A palm print appeared on his face, and blood gushed out from his mouth. Who? His expression was gloomy as he hurriedly looked around. In the end, there were no outsiders around him at all. Even his own people were a distance away from him. I am here. Song Shi walked out nonchalantly. At this moment, he had become a middle-aged man. He was an older version of himself. You want to interfere in my Sun family's matters? You have to think carefully about the consequences. Sun Bai threatened. Piak, piak, piak. Song Shi slapped Sun Bai 8 times in a row, making him dizzy. He sat on the ground, and his face swelled up at a speed visible to the naked eye. That's my answer. Is Itena. He has a death wish. How dare he act so arrogantly in front of my Sun family? Everyone, let's kill him together. The guards behind Sun Bai were enraged. Slapping their head in front of them was equivalent to slapping them. At this moment, Iron Leg Li did not stop because of Song Shi's appearance. Instead, he increased his attack speed and wanted to quickly take down Song Hai to prevent any accidents from happening. Song Shi was blocked by the Sun family's guards who were eyeing him covetously. He was really not afraid of anything. He said expressionlessly, "Don't block the way." Clang! Amidst sound of the saber being drawn, a cold light flashed as it slashed fiercely at Song Shi. Song Shi narrowed his eyes and waved his hand. A powerful force swept over. Boom! The ground shook, and more than 10 guards were sent flying. They screamed and fell at the entrance. Many of the weapons in their hands were broken. Some cut themselves, and some were stabbed nearby. Sun Bai, who had been slapped, changed his expression and quietly retreated. Song Shi flicked his finger in the air. Bang! Sun Bai spat out a mouthful of blood and flew out. He crashed into the stone lion, shattering it into pieces. The stone shattered. Sun Bai, who did not practice martial arts, was turned into meat paste on the spot. He was actually killed directly. The Sun family head is dead. How terrifying! Who is this person? He killed someone without even saying a word. This is a ruthless person. Let's hide further away. The people who were watching the show did not expect that even bystanders would be splashed with blood. They retreated in fear. This time, Iron Leg Li was no longer in the mood to beat up Song Hai, who was down on their luck. He turned his head and stared at Song Shi with a solemn expression. Your casual strike have such strong power. I've never seen you among the martial arts masters of Silken City. Song Shi could not be bothered to explain. He walked over quickly step by step, clearly wanting to deal with the other party. Iron Leg Li's eyes were dark and a green cyclone appeared on his legs. He jumped up and kicked Song Shi's head in the air. Song Shi grabbed the stone lion from afar and smashed it down. Iron Leg Li's expression changed. He did not expect this person to be able to grab a stone lion that weighed more than 50,000 kilograms from afar. He hurriedly changed his move and kicked the stone lion. Crack! Felian's head exploded from the kick. Rocks flew everywhere. Iron Leg Li borrowed the force to retreat, wanting to accumulate time to prepare his attack again. Song Shi pursed his lips and took a step forward. His red palm slapped down. Crack! Odd! Iron Leg Li was slapped to the ground. He hugged his thigh and screamed. His bones were broken and twisted like broken wood.